Okay. In our previous session of this class, we had started off with the chapter that is two stories about flying. And if we look into the summary of both the stories, the first story is about a bird. And the second story which we are going to read now is about a human. The first story was about a young seagull who was too scared to fly, and no amount of scolding, no amount of threatening encouraged him to fly, because he had the FOMA, you can say, that his wings would not support him and that he would fall down. He did not take any courage, and it was ultimately his mother who had taken the advantage, and that was the food, because he was starving for more than 24 hours and his mother had brought the food in front of him. So when he tried to grab that food, even though he fell down, yet soon his wings supported him and he started flying, soaring up high in the sky, then diving towards the water. And once again, he had the fear when his body touched the water, because he felt his legs would sink into the ocean, but that was not. The moment his belly touched the water, he was able to skim over the surface. So that was how he was able to overcome his fear. So that was about the fear factor. The second chapter which we are going to read, which I have already summarized, it's about a person who had followed his intuition. The moon was coming up in the east behind me. If we look into this the statement, it is personification, because moon is a natural element. And he has used that moon was coming behind me. The stars were shining in the clear sky above me. What does he mean is that at the beginning of his flight, the weather was clear. It was pleasant. There wasn't a cloud in the sky. I was happy to be alone high up above the sleeping countryside. Means he was flying his aircraft, and below it was night, so people were sleeping. I was flying my old Dakota aeroplane over France back to England. He belonged to England. I was dreaming of my holiday and looking forward to being with my family. I looked at my watch, 1:30 in the morning. He was actually, maybe he was too tired of his monotonous life. He wanted to go back to his family, have a good time with them. I should call Paris control soon, I thought. As I looked down past the nose of the aeroplane, I saw the lights of a big city in front of me. I switched on the radio and said, Paris control, Dakota DS088 here. Can you hear me? I'm on my way to England. So, after soaring to a certain height, he had a contact with the control room and he informed about his warehouse. The voice from the radio immediately answered, DS088, I can hear you, ought to turn 12 degrees west, DS088. I checked the map and the compass, switched over to my second and the last fuel tank, turned the Dakota 12 degrees west towards England. I'll be in time for breakfast, I thought. A good big English breakfast. Everything was going well. It was an easy flight. What does it mean? Means at that particular time around 1:30, when he had a contact with the control room, the weather was clear and everything was in his control. It was an easy flight means he did not find any obstacle, any challenge ahead. Paris was about 150 kilometers behind me when I saw the clouds, storm clouds. They were huge. They looked like black mountains standing in front of me across the sky. I knew I could not fly up and over them, and I did not have enough fuel to fly around them to north or south. Now, what was the first dilemma he encountered? सबसे पहली जो प्रॉब्लम उसके साथ थी वो ये था कि उसके सामने clouds, and to drive through the cloud means you are inside the thunderbolt. That could lead to crash. अब उसको समझ नहीं आ रहा था कि इतनी ज्यादा थे, उसके ऊपर से जाना मुश्किल था और उसके पास इतना फ्यूल नहीं था कि वो थोड़ा सा घूम के जाए. I ought to go back to Paris, I thought, but I wanted to get home. I wanted that breakfast. Yet he was more inclined towards the breakfast. You can say थोड़ा सा वो लालची था. He wanted to spend the time with his family. I'll take the risk. ये पेपर में आया था. What is the risk the pilot is talking about? This is there. I think it's an NCERT question also. I'll take the risk, I thought, and flew that old Dakota straight into the storm. Means he had the courage to fly the plane through the storm. Inside the clouds, everything was suddenly black. It was impossible to see anything outside the aeroplane. The aeroplane jumped and twisted in the air. It was a turbulence. जब आपके मौसम खराब होता है तो normally the flights have the turbulence. अभी स्पाइस जेट का हुआ था last week. Many people were injured in that. Sometimes the turbulence is, most of the time you have the turbulence, but sometimes the turbulence is too severe. I remember that we had gone to Nepal, and while we were coming back, the flight had the turbulence. And it was the first time I had seen such a turbulence, because that flight was a small flight, छोटी flight थी वो. Believe me, I was scared to death. उसके बाद बहुत बार ऐसा हुआ है. That is why I always मैं कोशिश करती हूँ not to fly between July to September. जब बारिश का मौसम होता है मैं बिल्कुल नहीं कोशिश करती हूँ नहीं जाऊँ. Because most of the time when the monsoons are there, you will be having the turbulence. But when the turbulence is severe, then it may even injure people. I looked at the compass. I couldn't believe my eyes. The compass was turning round and round and round. Means the compass was not working. It was not functioning. It was dead. It would not work. The other instruments were suddenly dead too. I tried the radio. Means he had lost the control to the room. अभी जो कल नेपाल का जो एक एरोप्लेन जो है which has been crashed, if you look into its history also, you will find that the pilot had lost the control after 10 o'clock. Paris control, there was no answer. The radio was dead too. I had no radio, no compass, and I could not see where I was. I was lost in the storm. Then in the black clouds, quite near me, I saw another aeroplane. As I said that it was only his hallucination. It was nothing. It was not a real aeroplane, but he hallucinated that might be there is one more. Maybe डर के कभी-कभी ऐसा होता है कि when we are too scared to feel people around us. It had no lights on its wings, but I could see it flying next to me through the storm. I could see the pilot's face turn towards me. I was very glad to see another person. He lifted one hand and waved. इसको ऐसा लगा कि सामने दूसरे जो प्लेन है उसमें कोई पायलट बैठा है और उसने इसको हाथ भी हिलाया. Follow me, he was saying, follow me. He knows I'm lost. He's trying to help me. He turned his aeroplane slowly to the north in front of my Dakota so that it would be easier for me to follow him. I was very happy to go beyond the strange aeroplane like an obedient child. Because at that time he was lost, so he did not know what to do. तो उस वक्त में उसके दिमाग में वो एक छोटे बच्चे की तरह बस उसका कहना मान रहा था. After half an hour, the strange black aeroplane was still there in front of me in the clouds. Now there was only enough fuel in the old Dakota's last tank to fly for 5 to 10 minutes more. I was starting to feel frightened again. But then he started to go down. I followed through the storm. पहले अगर आपको याद हो, in the beginning he said, there are two ways. Either I have to pass through the storm or I can go through the north or south. Maybe unintentionally he had taken the north route. और उसको ऐसा लगा कोई सामने है. But एक particular point के बाद उसको लगा उसके पास तो fuel नहीं है. Now what will happen? But the plane was declining. मतलब वो land करने के लिए तैयार हो रहा था. Suddenly I came out of the clouds and saw two long streaks of lights in front of me. It was a runway. Runway is a place where the aeroplane descends, and for some area you will be finding the road and then the plane stops. An airport. I was safe. I turned to look for my friend in the black aeroplane, but the sky was empty. There was nothing there. The black aeroplane was gone. I could not see it anywhere. I landed and was not sorry. ये जो question है, this particular sentence जो है, ये कई बार आया हुआ पेपर में, that I landed and was not sorry to walk away from the old Dakota near the control tower. मतलब he was happy that he had landed safely, and now he wanted to thank that person. So for leaving the Dakota for some time was not a big problem. I went and asked a woman in the control center where I was and who the other pilot was. I wanted to say thank you. She looked at me very strangely and then laughed. ये भी पेपर में आया हुआ है कि why did the woman look at him strangely? मतलब वो इतना, क्योंकि कोई था ही नहीं. Another aeroplane up there in the storm. No other aeroplanes were flying tonight. Yours was the only one I could see on the radar. उसने कहा दूसरा आपका एक ही था. So, who helped me to arrive there safely without a compass or a radio or without more fuel in my tanks? Who was the pilot on the strange black aeroplane flying in the storm without lights? But he did not have any answer. और अगर आपके पेपर के अंदर ये क्वेश्चन आता है, if you have this question as a part, the answer to this is that was, you can say, his hallucination. You can say that was somewhere when he was frightened, जब वो डर गया था बुरी तरीके से. तो maybe when we are feared, तो हम लोग क्या कहते हैं, जब when we are feared तो we start chanting गायत्री मंत्र, हनुमान चालीसा, and we feel that some omnipresent is there. कुछ ऐसी चीज है जो हमें मतलब कि सेव कर रही है. And maybe that was what he had also envisaged. Maybe that was his hallucination that helped him to drive through the clouds and towards the north and head towards some airport. So these are the two stories. The one about a young seagull, how it had overcome his fear, and the second one about a pilot who did not have anything with him, no compass, no radio, no fuel, yet somewhere some, you can say, intuition, some hallucination which helped him to drive through that storm.